sister-in-law's shocking betrayal, and how my family exposed a sinister plot that changed our lives forever. This is a long one, but I need to get it off my chest. If you decide to read it all, I'm truly grateful, because this has been an ongoing saga in my life, and I'm hoping sharing it here will help me process everything that's happened. So, I've been married to my husband, Harry, for several years now. We've had a pretty great relationship overall, but there's one major obstacle that has been an ongoing challenge: his sister, Kayla. At first, I tried really hard to get along with her, but over the years, I've come to realize she is absolutely toxic and manipulative. Looking back, I'm honestly surprised I didn't see it sooner. I'll start from the beginning. Harry and I met several years ago, and we hit it off immediately. Things were great, and when we got engaged, I thought his family would be thrilled for us. But I couldn't have been more wrong, especially when it came to Kayla. From the moment we started dating, she treated me with an icy coldness. She'd always bring up Harry's ex-girlfriends for no reason, constantly reminding him how well they were doing in their lives, suggesting he reach out to them again. It made me feel awful, and Harry didn't understand why she would do this. Eventually, he asked her to stop, but that didn't stop her from pushing. As time went on, things only got worse. Kayla would try to make me feel insecure in front of Harry, openly mocking me and suggesting that I wasn't good enough for him. She'd bring one of his exes to family dinners, claiming she had accidentally run into them. Every time, it felt like a deliberate attempt to make me uncomfortable. It was always the same. She would talk about how much better Harry could do, how I wasn't the right fit for him. It was exhausting, but I didn't want to cause drama, so I kept quiet and tried to remain civil. The turning point came when Harry and I were engaged. Everyone was congratulating us, but Kayla just sat there, quiet and cold. Then, out of nowhere, she stood up and stormed out of the room. Later, she called Harry, crying about how she was hurt that she wasn't the first to know about our engagement. She claimed she was the closest to him and that I should have let her in on the news first. Her dramatic reaction shocked me, but Harry was furious. It didn't stop there. She sent me a message, almost threatening me, telling me how I should treat her brother because she had always been the only woman in his life. That was the last straw for me, and I stopped responding. Things didn't improve during the wedding preparations. Kayla insisted on being involved, even though both my future mother-in-law and Harry called her out several times for her behavior. She criticized every decision I made, from the dress to the decor, and even mocked the centerpiece I chose. At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I told her that she was no longer invited to our wedding. It felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, but of course, Kayla was enraged. She contacted Harry, insisting that I had embarrassed her, but Harry stood by my decision, saying that she wasn't invited unless she changed her behavior. That didn't go over well, but in the end, she sent a half-hearted apology, and I ignored it. I had enough of her toxicity. At the wedding, Kayla showed up in a black floor-length gown, looking like she was attending a funeral. She made a scene, claiming she was grieving because her brother was losing her to another woman. It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever seen, and everyone could feel the tension. Harry finally had enough and told her that her behavior was unacceptable. He even told her that she wasn't a mother and wouldn't ever deserve to be one. It was harsh, but it was long overdue. It felt good to see him stand up to her for once. Fast forward to the birth of our son, Nate. Kayla had suffered a miscarriage years ago, and while I sympathized with her, I also didn't want her anywhere near my newborn. I had to set boundaries, and luckily, my in-laws supported my decision. Kayla didn't take it well, but in the end, she respected my wishes. At first, she seemed to change. She was nice to Nate and behaved somewhat decently. But that didn't last long. Soon, her negativity crept back in. She would constantly talk about how difficult her life was, how nothing ever went her way, and how everyone else was to blame for her problems. She played the victim constantly, never taking accountability for her actions. Then she got married to Jamie, and I thought maybe things were finally turning around. But nope, she invited everyone to her wedding, but made it clear that I wasn't welcome. She said that my presence would ruin her big day because of how I had dressed for our wedding years ago. Apparently, the black dress I wore was a crime in her eyes, and she was still holding on to it. Harry and I were taken aback. We had done nothing but try to move forward, but once again, she was trying to sabotage things. In the end, we decided not to attend her wedding, and Harry made it clear that she had gone too far. She tried to play the victim, but no one was buying it anymore. A few months after her wedding, Kayla came knocking on our door. Her marriage was falling apart, and she was blaming Jamie for everything. She spent days venting about him, trying to make us take her side. I was done. We tried to be sympathetic at first, but it quickly became clear that she was more interested in complaining than in actually improving her situation. She even started questioning my relationship with her, insinuating that I was cheating on him because I sometimes brought a change of clothes to work or went to the gym. It was a low blow, and I had had enough. One day, she made a comment about whether Nate was really Harry's son. I lost it. How could she ask something so vile? Harry was furious, and for once, he didn't hold back. He told her that she was the one who didn't deserve to be a mother, and that Nate was better off with people who actually cared for him. Kayla didn't know how to react. She started crying and looking for sympathy, but no one gave it to her. Harry made it clear that we were done dealing with her drama. We both agreed that she was no longer welcome in our lives, and we made it clear to his parents that we wouldn't be putting up with Kayla's antics anymore. We haven't spoken to her in over a year now, and honestly, it's been a relief. The drama, the constant manipulation, the negativity, it's all gone. I feel like we're finally able to enjoy our lives without her toxic influence. Harry and I are stronger than ever, and while I still feel bad for Kayla sometimes, I know we made the right choice in distancing ourselves from her. Months ago, I discovered that I was expecting. Given our lack of effort, this was quite unexpected, but to welcome another family member fills both my spouse and me with joy. We felt incredibly blessed. We decided to let everyone know about the pregnancy on my husband's birthday, since we had been waiting for the right moment to share the news. We wanted to honor Harry and his family, as they had been incredibly supportive. Mill and Phil were throwing a great celebration at their home, and close friends and relatives were invited. SIL, my sister-in-law, decided to show up after hearing about the news from others. When we saw her, my husband and I were taken aback. We staggered a bit before coming in for a hug. SIL told Harry how much she had missed him and how sorry she was for their last conversation. Then she took my hand, and Harry advised his sister to apologize to me, as she had unfairly pointed fingers at my character in the past. SIL nodded, looked at me, and apologized. She mentioned that she had been attending therapy for the past few months and realized how inappropriate it was for her to treat me the way she had. Although I disagreed with everything she said, I nodded in return, wanting to keep the peace in front of everyone since this was a special celebration for my husband. Mill and Phil checked in on us and made it clear that if we felt uncomfortable, they would remove Sil from the gathering, as they had no idea she would be showing up. Harry insisted on not making a scene, and we decided to let it go. It felt strange though, because Sil was laughing and socializing with everyone, looking like her usual self. She mentioned attending therapy, and despite how out of character that seemed for her, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she was trying to make amends. But it still didn't sit quite right with me. Later, during the party, Harry spoke movingly about how he considered himself the luckiest man on earth, grateful for another year spent with me. When it came time to cut the cake, his heartfelt words made me flush with delight, reminding me of when we first started dating all those years ago. I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the love we still shared. Then, Harry and I decided it was time to share some fantastic news. Grinning, we told everyone we were expecting a baby. Everyone paused for a moment before erupting in cheers and delight. My mother rushed over to hug me, tears streaming down her face, and Phil saluted us with tears of his own. Everyone was excited, asking about baby names and showing their genuine happiness for us. But there was one person whose reaction caught me off guard. She seemed stunned. Her mood shifted almost instantly, and she turned away from us. Looking visibly irritated, I assumed maybe she was just processing the news slowly, but I was a bit concerned. I wondered if she might ruin yet another celebration for us, but I tried to brush it off, as other people were approaching to chat and celebrate with us. I got up to help my in-laws carry lunch, but Rick and my parents urged me to stay seated, insisting I shouldn't move. I was resting peacefully when Sil came over to me with a beaming smile, telling me she was excited about my pregnancy. She said she personally wanted to offer me dinner to make up for the past time she had been rude to me. She handed me a plate, and I nodded politely, accepting the gesture, even though I was still a little wary of her sudden change in attitude. Just as I was about to dig in, I noticed something strange. She had put shrimp on my dish. I'm severely allergic to shrimp, so I was immediately disappointed and surprised that Sil would even bring me this dish. I quickly shook my head and got up to get my own meal. That's when Jimmy came over to wish me well on my pregnancy, and after some small talk, he asked why I hadn't been eating. I explained to him that Sil had accidentally served me shrimp, and since he enjoyed shrimp, he said he could have the plate. I smiled and nodded, thankful for his offer, and went off to grab a fresh plate for myself. But moments later, as I turned back to the table, I saw Jimmy begin to puke and writhe in his seat. In just a few minutes, not even 5, everyone stopped eating, concerned, watching him stagger out of his seat. Harry and Kayla rushed over to him, and Jimmy gestured toward the plate, then at his throat. Our eyes widened as we realized something was wrong. Jimmy had passed out, and the whole room gasped in amazement and worrying. Kayla quickly examined the dish and her eyes widened in shock. She turned to stare at me, then asked if I had handed her husband my plate. I nodded. Someone immediately called for an ambulance, and Jimmy was rushed to the hospital. In the chaos, Kayla was sobbing uncontrollably, glaring angrily at me. We later found out that Jimmy had been poisoned, and knowing that the plate had originally been mine made me nearly pass out from shock. The doctors told us that whatever Jimmy had eaten had caused him to faint, and there was a possibility that the food could have harmed my baby, too. Nobody knew what had been in the food Jimmy consumed, but when the police were called to investigate, they confirmed that the plate had belonged to me. Jamie's condition was serious, but he's still in recovery at the hospital. Kayla stayed with him overnight, and relatives have been calling, asking about the situation and who might have poisoned him. My husband and I have been fielding calls and explaining what happened, and I'm still trying to make sense of everything. The situation has shaken Mel and Phil so much that they are staying at our house. They're too scared to return to their own home, and everyone is in a state of confusion. No one understands what happened, and now it seems like everything is spiraling out of control. I have to admit, I'm terribly afraid of what might happen next. If this evolves into a full-blown investigation, I'm going to have to tell the police the truth, and that terrifies me. Most importantly, I'm scared for my safety and my baby. I don't want to be near Sil anymore, and I don't feel comfortable bringing my kids anywhere near her either. It's obvious she has no qualms about trying to poison me, and that realization is terrifying. I also feel guilty about handing my meal over to Jimmy. Maybe I could have prevented this, but I didn't act quickly enough. The guilt is overwhelming, and I keep crying, worried about the future. Harry has been hovering close by, but he doesn't know what I know about his sister. He thinks I'm just worried, but I feel like there's so much more going on than anyone realizes. I've been told by some people that I should have a calm, honest conversation with everyone involved, but I'm scared they won't believe me. Mill and Phil have security cameras all over their house, and since the party took place in their backyard, I'm confident they could check the footage and confirm that Kayla was the one who handed me the plate. I just have to get the courage to speak with everyone tonight. After that, I'll update you all again. Update Mill and Phil have already been staying with us, so I sat down with Harry and them over dinner to share something crucial. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the circumstances settling heavily on my shoulders. Everyone gathered around, and I began recounting the events of the birthday party, explaining how SIL had handed me a plate of prawns, which Jamie had inadvertently consumed, leading to his severe sickness. The shock and incredulity I felt were clearly reflected on their faces as I spoke. Al and Phil exchanged concerned glances, clearly worried. Harry's expression shifted from uncertainty to absolute rage as I continued. I expressed my growing concerns about SIL's intentions and her past attempts to harm me, explaining how this situation could have had dire consequences for both myself and our unborn child. I hesitated for a moment, overwhelmed by the gravity of it all. Being the pragmatic woman that Mill is, she immediately advised that we check the security camera footage, given the seriousness of the matter. FIL nodded in agreement, though he, too, appeared visibly shaken. Harry remained quiet, processing the startling disclosure. As we reviewed the footage on their camera app, the truth was undeniable. The video clearly showed SIL handing me the poisoned plate, and we watched, horrified, as it led to Jamie's suffering. The evidence was irrefutable, and with the weight of that knowledge settling in, emotions ran high. Now fully aware of his sister's malicious intentions, Harry struggled to contain his anger. Mill and Phil were horrified by the extent of what their daughter had done, and they too were shocked by the disturbance she had caused. We were all left in stunned silence, trying to make sense of why she would act in such a manner. Given the seriousness of the situation, my in-laws decided to hand over the footage to the police. Following this revelation, it would be up to Jamie to file charges against SIL. Phil and Harry would meet with him once he recovered. I can't help but cry every time I think about how I let Jamie have the poisoned dish. I'm still uncertain about how Jamie will react, and I'm filled with anxiety about him. I can't seem to eat anything or sleep properly, as the weight of it all continues to haunt me. I'll keep you all updated on any noteworthy developments. Update 3. All right, everyone, I'm finally back with an update. I know it's been a month since my last post, but right now, as a pregnant woman dealing with so much, I truly needed the time to process everything. First things first, Kayla was detained after seeing the evidence. My in-laws handed over the recording to the police, and Kayla immediately admitted everything, without hesitation. She didn't dispute the claims and began crying uncontrollable. Jamie, understandably startled by everything, was approached by Harry, who assured him that he would always be a part of our family, no matter what he decided to do. Harry also advised him to press charges against his sister for what she had done, given the wickedness of her actions. Once Jamie recovered, not only did he choose to prosecute, but he also decided to seek a divorce from Kayla. She began calling and begging Mill and Phil for forgiveness, trying to manipulate them by saying they should do this for the sake of their granddaughter. She even begged them to bail her out, but Phil firmly told her it was time for her to take responsibility for her actions and that they were done coddling her. Mil, while deeply saddened by what had happened to her daughter, understood that Kayla's actions couldn't simply be forgiven. The police found further evidence that Kayla had tampered with the meal meant for me, but it had backfired and harmed Jamie instead. As a result, she was charged with multiple offenses, including risking someone's life, causing damage, and tampering with food. Kayla attempted to claim that this was all my fault, but fortunately, the law didn't see it that way. Despite her pleas for a reduced sentence, she will now face the consequences of her actions. The court hearing will begin shortly, and I doubt she'll be able to escape this time. As for Jamie, he is finally free from her manipulation. He has successfully divorced her, and we've seen him over the months, continuing to include him in our family events whenever we can. He told me that it was never my fault, and when we spoke, I profusely apologized to him for handing him my poisoned plate. I had been rehearsing my apology over and over in my mind, wishing I had acted differently so he would never have been poisoned. Hearing him say that it wasn't my fault was a huge relief, and I broke down in tears, grateful that he is doing well now. Harry and I have been focused on our family, and our lives have slowly started to heal. We are now the proud parents of a beautiful baby girl, and her presence has truly warmed and illuminated our lives. Despite everything that's happened, seeing our kids, including our son Nate, bond and grow together fills us with joy. Nate has been incredibly loving and caring toward his little sister, and it makes us appreciate the simple things in life. My parents and in-laws have been here for us every step of the way, guiding us through this new phase of our lives. Their support means the world to us. Thank you all for following along with our journey. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more real-life stories that are happening around us.